Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 530 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jay Kohn. Janelle is off this evening. Montana firefighters and resources now headed to help out in the fight against the wildfires in California and Oregon. 6 deaths now blamed on the Carr fire burning in Northern California. It's considered to be the most destructive fire in that state's history. Columbus fire crews are among those headed now to California. These photos posted on their Facebook page earlier this week. Crews from Columbus, Missoula, Livingston, and Butte all answered a request for emergency management assistance. Now, while the fire situation in Montana right now is relatively quiet, that's certainly not the case for much of the West Coast. Those Montana crews won't be tackling the Carr fire near Redding, but instead they'll be headed about 200 miles to the south, where the 90,000-acre Mendocino complex fire continues to burn out of control.
The need is great there, so we're making personnel available here to go out there. And depending on what you're doing on a fire, you're driving or flying out, and you're spending 14 to 21 days on assignment helping there. It's not entirely altruistic, because we have every expectation that our fire season in Montana is going to pick up. And then other areas that are quieter will send help when we ask for it.
Now, this very thing is happening on an international scale. This weekend, as many as 200 firefighters from Australia and New Zealand are set to arrive to help battle the West Coast fires. Al Nass says they'll likely be here for a couple of months, assisting where help is needed. Montana has been fortunate this summer in terms of wildfire. While a few fires have broken out in western Montana, so far the biggest impact has been the smoky, hazy skies that now stretch from one side of our state to the other. For the most part, air quality is still rated as good, but a few moderate conditions are now popping up in a few isolated communities. Tonight, we get a behind-the-scene look at how those air quality readings are conducted.
Most Montanans know that when smoke rises, air quality can suffer. That's hard to forget after last year's wildfire season, which brought multiple days of brown sky conditions. The Montana Department of Environmental Quality measures our air quality based on standards set by the EPA.
One of the main functions is compliance with ambient air quality standards, but also we do monitor general air quality conditions for health concerns as well.
Some of those pollutants measured include carbon monoxide, lead, and fine particulate matter. That particulate matter is one of the primary reasons for poor air quality in the summer. Air quality scientists use very specialized equipment to measure those fine particles.
These instruments continuously pull ambient air, filter out the particulate, and measure the mass of particulate that it collects over a given period of time.
That measurement is then recorded on a strip of paper. Darker circles indicate lower air quality, like this measurement from Sealy Lake last summer. In addition to measuring air quality, the DEQ also has a meteorologist to forecast where and when the smoke will be heavy.
I will look at where the fires are, what the current air quality is, what the forecast is for whether the smoke will stick around, or maybe new smoke will come in if there's new fires expected.
A lot goes on behind the scenes to keep Montanans safe and informed during wildfire season. And now you're a little more weather-wise.
Elsewhere in Montana tonight, a Flathead Valley woman who's been missing for more than 2 weeks this morning found dead in her car that was found submerged in a pond on the west side of Kalispell. A local resident there alerting law enforcement after noticing the tip of a car antenna sticking out of that small pond on his property. Flathead County Sheriff Chuck Curry says divers this morning recovered the body of 23-year-old Alex Beltran of Whitefish. Beltran was first reported missing back on July 16th after she left a home on the west side of Kalispell. Curry says authorities believe she may have been drinking heavily on the day she disappeared. A teenager has died in Glacier National Park after he was swept off a 100-foot cliff on the Going to the Sun Road. 15-year-old Spencer Flershinger of Kamiah, Idaho was visiting the park with his parents when he apparently slipped at a culvert near Haystack Creek Tuesday afternoon. He was exploring that culvert when he apparently fell into the creek and was swept away. Healthcare providers asking Montana state leaders to move quickly to reverse a series of state budget cuts made last year. Just this past week, Governor Steve Bullock announced the state would be able to restore as many as $45 million in cuts made over the past year. Today, State Health Department Director Sheila Hogan, along with the Governor's Budget Director Dan Villa, held a listening session to discuss their budget priorities. As many as 150 people attending that meeting. Another 100 were connected by phone. Providers talked today about the impact those cuts have had on mental health services, substance abuse assistance, and targeted case management. And most agreed the cuts already have had a significant effect on their ability to provide care.
I think we will be able to provide the services once we get the money reinstated, but it's going to take us a while to build those services back up. We've already let some of our counselors go and, like I said, cut back on the satellite services and administrative staff.
Hogan and Villa say that by September they hope they'll be able to announce which of the cuts will be able to be restored. Ranchers seeking to graze livestock on federal land recently gave Congress an earful about their ideas for more productive range management. Tonight, Russell Nimitz tells us more about it in this Montana Ag Network report.
Cattle and sheep producers have warned Congress that environmental laws are increasingly being misused by fringe activist groups and pose a growing threat to grazing on federal lands. Their testimony came at a hearing held by the House Oversight and Government Reform Subcommittee on the Interior, Energy, and Environment. And testifying on behalf of the American Sheep Industry Association was Dillon, Montana sheep and wool producer John Helly.
Well, it gives me a great opportunity to kind of vent some of the issues that I think are broken in the system that we're stuck in the middle of because of a lawsuit. And you know, there's things I think that are broken, and I'm a big believer in a participatory government and coming up here to D.C. to participate in the process to help make things go better.
The hearing was chaired by Montana Congressman Greg Gianforte and comes in response to mounting challenges faced by ranchers who graze livestock on federal land and the opportunities for productive range management practices.
Well, I've been hearing from ranchers across Montana that are dependent on grazing on public lands and have been for generations, that frivolous litigation has been restricting their access to those lands, even though they've been the stewards over all these years.
The hearing was also an opportunity for ranchers like Helly to talk about the benefits of grazing livestock on public lands.
You know, having us federal lands ranchers out there is giving great public benefits. We're stewards of the land. You know, we protect open space. We, build an economy.
Helly says it's also his hope that one of the outcomes of the hearing will be greater emphasis of resolving multi-use conflicts at the local level versus the federal level.
When we take things to the courts or we take things and make broad decisions coming out of D.C., those aren't necessarily the best way that we manage.
And for members of Congress like Gianforte, the goal of these hearings is to understand where the issues are to develop public policy.
In this case, we need to provide ways that ranchers can have certainty to the grazing allotments that have been part of their family operations for generations.
Russell Nimitz, MTN News.
Thank you, Russell. Russell tells us access to public lands for grazing is critically important for ranchers here in Montana and Wyoming. In fact, recent data shows that grazing on federal lands contributed at least $1.5 billion to the economy and supported over 18,000 jobs nationally. It's a huge music week here in the Magic City. Country star Chris Stapleton kicks off the busy week. He's in concert tomorrow night down at the Rimrock Auto Arena. More than 9,000 fans expected in attendance. Metro Park Management has some suggestions for you about parking tomorrow night. The Metro Park traffic plan that was developed during the Garth Brooks concerts last year will be in place on Thursday night. Marketing Director Ray Massey says the Metro has about 3,700 parking spaces. He's suggesting carpooling and obviously arriving early for the concert. Plus, he says about 100 premium parking passes are still available.
With that many people there, everything is going to be crowded at the arena. You'll want to get there as soon as you can. Doors are at 5:30. We open a special pre-screening area for you from security standpoint at 4 o'clock. So you'll be able to go into the special area. There's beverages and food and facilities available for you there. So you're all set when we open the doors to go into the show.
Another note about the security getting into the concert. Massey says items that are found with wands and metal detectors will be given back to the concert goers so they can be returned to their cars. This big music week continues this weekend with the Magic City Blues Festival. ZZ Top is Friday's headliner, Philip Phillips on Saturday. Plus, the Pub Station downtown also has 3 days of concerts starting tonight. Well, coming up on tonight's 5:30 News, a new type of boxing therapy just might be what the doctor ordered for these folks who are battling Parkinson's. And in sports night, the CrossFit World Games are underway in Wisconsin. Scott has an update for us on where Montana's only team stands after day one.
And coming up in weather, where there's smoke, there's fire. We're going to show you all the smoke plumes and all the fire that's being made. We'll tell you more about that coming up in a few more minutes.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Kohn and Janelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.